When you wanted to buy your watch, what were you thinking about? Movement? Dial? The history? What? After you bought it, did you love your purchase? Or were you like that guy that spent $12,000 on a watch that runs on the same movement as something sold for a quarter of the price and regretted it? The key is to buy a watch that's worth it with the pricing and the specs, and this is exactly what this video is about. I have 10 watches that make your purchase incredibly smart. Let me tell you about them. 10 Brew Watch Co. Picture a chronograph that has absolutely nothing to say about heritage. No naval history, no racing pedigree it didn't earn, no story about a grandfather's workshop in the Jura Valley. Brew Watch Co. doesn't have any of that. And that's the first reason it's interesting. Founded by Jonathan Ferrer in New York, Brew builds watches that look like they were designed inside a good coffee ritual, not in a gimmicky, coffee-themed way where you find espresso logos pressed into the dial. The aesthetic is industrial, asymmetric chronograph cases, curved lugs that bracket the dial like a machine component, retro-futurist proportions that read simultaneously as vintage and forward. The look shouldn't work as well as it does. So, Ferrer figured out that most brands his size haven't. The movement question is a trap. Instead of chasing a Swiss automatic chronograph movement at a price that would push the watch past $700, he went Mecha Quartz, specifically a Seiko SII VK movement. The collector community responded with the usual snobbery, until they wore one. A Mecha Quartz chronograph doesn't behave like standard quartz. The seconds hand sweeps mechanically. The pushers feel mechanical. You get the tactile experience of a column wheel chronograph without the tolerant stack-ups that plague budget automatics. Brew's entry retails under $300. For a watch this original in silhouette, that's not a compromise. That's the whole decision. So the next time someone tells you quartz is the sign of a cheap watch, ask them to explain why Patek used one in the ref. $3,800. Then watch them change the subject. There's something else nobody mentions about Brew. The brand has no heritage to protect, and that freedom is structural. Ferrer can design cases with asymmetric crown guards and industrial subdial layouts without anyone in marketing flagging it as off-brand. The result is the most formally original chronograph available under $400. Not original for its price. Original, full stop. The collectors who know Brew tend to keep it quiet. Explaining why a Mecha Quartz chronograph from a New York brand deserves wall space next to a Heuer requires more patience than most dinner conversations allow. The watch doesn't need the explanation. Do you own this watch? Brew figured out that no legacy can also be a structural advantage. The next brand figured out something more uncomfortable, that the material most watch brands use for their cases is fundamentally soft, and they decided to fix it. 9. Trasca. The problem with polished stainless steel is that it shows everything. You learn this about 3 weeks into daily wear, when the first hairline scratches appear on the bezel from nothing more than resting your wrist on a wooden desk. Standard 316L surgical steel, the grade used in most watches, including many from major Swiss houses, measures around 200 Vickers on the hardness scale. Excellent at resisting corrosion. Surface scratching, though, is a different problem entirely. Trasca, an American brand that launched its first dive watch in 2018, decided to solve it at the material level. Their proprietary thermochemical hardening treatment permeates the surface structure of the 316L steel itself, rather than depositing a foreign coating on top. The Teddy Baldassar review from March 2026 described it precisely. Not a coating that can chip or flake, but an actual change to the metal's own properties. The result is a case hardness of nearly 1,200 Vickers, approximately 6 times the resistance of standard steel. WatchCrunch user reviews and WatchUSeek forum threads from regular owners across 2024 and 2025 consistently report 0 scratches after months of daily, unprotected wear. And here's the counterintuitive move. Trasca finishes their cases with full polishing. High-polished surfaces on standard steel are essentially scratch magnets. On a Trasca case at 1,200 Vickers, they're not. The same surface finish that gets destroyed in 6 months on a standard dive watch stays clean under daily use on a Traska freediver. The movements inside are Miyota 9000 series automatics. Reliable, easily serviced anywhere. Traska doesn't pretend they're exotic. What the brand understood, correctly, is that the case is the thing you interact with every day. It's the thing you see, feel, and eventually regret when the first scratch arrives. They put the engineering where the contact actually happens. Commuter models start around $600. Freedivers sit in the same range. For a polished steel case that resists the heartbreaking graze marks most people eventually call character, that's money directed at the right problem. Think about what character actually means in this context. It means you paid premium money for something that degraded, and you don't want to feel bad about it. Traska is for the person who doesn't want to run that logic on themselves. Traska hardened the steel. The next brand went to Germany and built a movement thinner than 8 postage stamps that also carries an in-house escapement, something the Swiss majors still haven't matched at the price. 8 Nomos Glashütte. There's a town in Germany called Glashütte. Population around 3,000. It produces a disproportionate share of the world's serious mechanical watches. Lang & Söhne is there. Glashütte original. And Nomos, founded in 1990 just after the Berlin Wall came down, making movements that rival brands at 4 times the price haven't matched on specification. The entry-level pitch for Nomos always focuses on design. Bauhaus aesthetics, design awards, the clean typeface of the Tangente. All true, but the movement is the real story. The DUW 3001 is the caliber inside Nomos's Neomatic line, their automatic collection. It's 3.2 millimeters thick, thinner than a stack of 8 postage stamps. But it's also, according to Nomos's published technical figures, independently cited in Watch Time magazine's formal watch test, 94.2% mechanically efficient. Friction loss across the entire gear train is 5.8%. Industry standard for a self-winding movement is around 20% friction loss. Nomos cut that figure below 6. They managed it partly by machining every component from a low-friction alloy, and partly through a proprietary gear train with differently angled teeth on the wheels. But the escapement is the detail that separates this from clever engineering into something actually rare. In 2014, Nomos introduced the Swing System, their own in-house escapement. Proprietary balance spring. Balance bridge mounted on both sides, not the single cock that most movements use, which is more vulnerable to lateral shock. This is the mechanism that determines accuracy. Nomos owns theirs completely. They broke the Swiss monopoly on proprietary escapements held by Niverox and a handful of others in 2014. In a town of 3,000 people, a Tangente Neomatic in stainless steel runs from roughly $3,300 to $3,900, depending on configuration. For that, you get a movement whose efficiency figure Rolex has never been publicly required to produce for the Submariner. It's worth acknowledging the nuance on the older Alpha caliber. Its gear train does trace geometry back to the expired Peugeot 7001 patent. Nomos evolved it, decorated it to Glashütte standards, and added the Swing System escapement on top. They didn't copy a movement. They rebuilt one legally and improved it. That's different. But if someone tells you Nomos is completely decoupled from Swiss influence in its foundation calibers, that's not the full story either. The DUW calibers, though, those are clean, ground up. And they represent what happens when a small town with a serious tradition and no interest in marketing decides to actually build something. Nomos built a better movement. RZE built a better material for the case, and they did it starting from scratch in Singapore in 2020, competing with brands 30 years older and 10 times better resourced. 7 RZE watches. Grade 2 titanium is commercially pure titanium, the kind used in aerospace fasteners, surgical implants, and applications where the integrity of the material is not negotiable. It's also naturally soft on the surface. Drag a key across it, and the mark stays. Most watch brands solve this by upgrading to grade 5 titanium, an alloy. Harder, more expensive, and significantly more difficult to machine cleanly. RZE, founded in Singapore in 2020, took a different path. Their Ultra-Hex coating is a surface-hardening treatment applied to Grade 2 after machining. The result, confirmed by Fratello Watches in a March 2025 hands-on and by A Blog to Watch in an October 2025 review of the Resolute 36, is a surface hardness of 1,200 Vickers. Standard 316L steel sits at 200 to 240. RZE's treated Grade 2 is 5 to 6 times harder than the case material on most sports watches, including many costing 10 to 20 times more. What A Blog to Watch specifically noted on the Resolute 36, the Ultra-Hex treatment makes a mirror-polished bezel rim achievable on Grade 2 titanium, something normally impossible without upgrading to the more expensive Grade 5 alloy. That detail matters. Grade 2 gives you maximum lightness. Grade 5 gives you the hardness for polishing. RZE's coating gives you both, on material that costs less to produce. Total weight on the Resolute, 36 grams without bracelet. That's roughly the weight of 2 AA batteries. You'll forget it's on. The movements are Miyota automatics, solar quartz calibers, and, in the UTD 8000 digital released in early 2025, a custom proprietary module inside a Ultra-Hex titanium case with 200 meters of water resistance, starting at $219. That's not trying to be a G-Shock. That's trying to demonstrate that serious tool materials don't need to live behind a luxury price wall. A Watch You Seek thread from March 2025 surfaced a detail worth knowing. RZE confirmed directly, in response to a forum question, that the UTD 8000 module is not thermocompensated. Clean, direct answer to a pointed community question. That kind of candor is rarer in this industry than it should be. It's also part of what builds the buyer trust that keeps a brand this size viable when the bigger players try to outmarket them. Here's the observation worth keeping. RZE isn't a budget brand that happens to use titanium. They're a titanium-first brand that happens to be affordable. The distinction matters. It tells you where the design decisions started and what they were optimizing for. RZE solved for weight and hardness. Formex solved that problem of what happens to the movement when the watch takes a direct impact. 6. Formex. Two brothers from Switzerland, Hans-Peter and Ferdinand Gradl, started Formex in 1999. Both were trained watchmakers. Both were obsessed with motorsport. And the watch that came out of that background has a feature that no other production watch company has tried to build: a suspended case. The Formex case suspension system integrates 4 springs between the upper and lower sections of the watch case. It functions exactly like the suspension on a racing car, absorbing shock before it reaches the mechanism, rather than relying solely on shock jewels at the movement's balance staff. Standard shock protection in watches is passive and point-specific. The Formex system is active and systemic. The watch head floats. A Deployant.com reviewer in 2024 described the exposed corner screws that anchor the springs as the hallmark of the brand's patented suspension system, akin to the suspension setup in a typical motorcar. Monochrome Watches confirmed in October 2025 that the new Essence 41mm COSC retains the system fully, now adding a screw-down crown that, given the floating architecture, required real engineering work to integrate cleanly. Pre-order opened the 16th of October 2025. Retail, €1,590 on strap, €1,690 on bracelet. The movement is COSC certified Sellita SW2001. Not in-house, not exotic, but regulated to Swiss chronometer standards inside a case nobody else in production watchmaking has bothered to design. The clasp deserves a mention. A patented micro-adjustable butterfly with 3 fixed positions and a 7mm fine adjustment on the strap, all without tools. Most Swiss sports watches at double the price use a standard butterfly clasp and call it done. Formex built theirs as an engineering object. I'll be honest about the one thing I keep questioning with Formex: whether the suspension system meaningfully extends service life in normal daily use, versus being technically elegant theater. For a desk collector, probably less relevant than claimed. For someone who actually works with their hands, a surgeon, a climber, a construction manager who wears the same watch in the office and on site, the case for it strengthens considerably. What isn't theater is the clasp, the COSC certification, and the case architecture that took 25 years to mature. Formex engineered the case. Baltic engineered the movement configuration, borrowing a rotor architecture from watches costing 30 times more and making it accessible for the first time. 5. Baltic. Etienne Malek started Baltic in Paris in 2017 with a simple thesis that good design doesn't have to be expensive, but it should be honest about what it is. The Baltic MR line is that thesis built into a watch. Micro-rotor movements have been a hallmark of serious dress watchmaking for decades. Patek Philippe's Caliber 240, one of the most celebrated movements in the industry, uses a peripheral micro-rotor. So does the Slim d'Hermès. Other sources for micro-rotor movements include Voucher and a handful of independents, all starting north of $5,000. The engineering cost is the reason. Fitting the oscillating weight into the plane of the movement, rather than mounting it on top, requires significantly more complex construction and tighter tolerances. Baltic put a Hangzhou Cal 5000, a micro-rotor automatic, into a 36mm stainless case for around $750. Worn & Wound's hands-on at the MR1's launch made the point directly. Beyond this caliber, micro-rotor movements are essentially unavailable in affordable form. The Hangzhou movement beats at 4 Hz, delivers 42 hours of power reserve, and is rated to plus or minus 20 seconds per day regulation out of the box. The decoration is machine-made, not hand-finished. But through the exhibition caseback, you see the full movement with the rotor sitting in plane, the same view typically reserved for watches at 5-figure prices. The Calatrava proportion case is 10mm thick, including crystal, 8mm without, at 36mm diameter with Breguet numeral appliques and an off-center second subdial. This is a dress watch, making no apologies for being a dress watch in an era when the industry produces almost exclusively sports models. What Baltic understood is that the Hangzhou movement isn't something to hide. It's in the movement specification. They show it through the caseback. They named the architecture clearly, and that transparency, combined with movement architecture rare at any price, is why the MR sits in collections next to watches that cost 15 times more. You're not buying a Swiss movement in a micro-brand package. You're buying a 36mm dress watch with micro-rotor architecture for less than most people spend on a bracelet for the watch they wear to the same events. Picture the collector who picks up a Baltic MR, one alongside a Patek Calatrava they saved 18 months to buy. The Patek is the better watch, but the Baltic is the one they reach for on a Tuesday morning, when they want to feel something, not protect something. That distinction matters more than most price comparisons do. Have you ever walked away from a recognized name and picked up something nobody could place? Baltic made micro-rotor architecture accessible. Sinn made something else accessible, the material science and case engineering that the German special forces actually carry on active operations. 4 Sinn Spezialuren, Frankfurt. That address matters more than most people realize, because Sinn Spezialuren is one of the only watch manufacturers whose watches have been classified and certified not just as timepieces, but as actual diving equipment under European standards, EN 250 and EN 14143. The DNV Good Luck Classification Society conducted the certification from 2005 onwards. No watch company had sought that standard before Sinn asked for it. The tests cover function, pressure performance, and reliability as dive instruments, not as water-resistant fashion accessories. The material engineering starts with tegimentation. Watchtime magazine's inside look at Sinn's Frankfurt facility described the process in detail. A colsterizing method that hardens the surface of the steel without depositing any foreign material. The steel itself is transformed. Standard 316L sits at 200 Vickers. A tegimented Sinn case hits 1,200 Vickers minimum. On models using German submarine steel, sourced from Emden GmbH's North Sea shipbuilding operations, the surface hardness reaches up to 9 times that of standard steel. The submarine steel itself, amagnetic, impervious to saltwater corrosion, and possessed of the specific elastic behavior that keeps submarines structurally intact under pressure. You don't need to rinse it after ocean exposure. The steel doesn't corrode. And then the copper sulfate capsules inside select models. As they absorb moisture, they turn progressively darker blue, a visible indicator that the system is functioning. The primary benefit: service intervals extended from 4 to 5 years to 7 or 8. That's not a marketing claim. It's chemistry, and it's observable. The most extreme expression of Shin's philosophy is the 900 Diapol, a pilot's watch with a lubricant-free escapement. Components manufactured from a diamond-like carbon alloy that requires no oil at all. The most common failure mode in mechanical watches isn't the mainspring. It's the degradation of escapement oils over time. Remove the oil, and you remove the mechanism's primary failure point entirely. The 900 Diapol also carries tegimented hardening, anti-magnetic protection, and temperature-resistant technology tested for 24 hours at minus 45 degrees Celsius. It retailed around $4,310. Lothar Schmidt, who acquired Shin in 1994 after building A, Lange, and Sone from scratch, never made a watch for a lifestyle campaign. He made instruments. The EZM Mission Timer series is carried by German Special Forces, SWAT units, and the GSG-9. That's not a marketing arrangement. Those are organizations that chose specific equipment after evaluating what it could actually survive. Picture the officer who pulls a 556 off the counter at a sporting goods retailer, puts it on a wrist that the next morning goes into a situation where timing matters, and doesn't think about the watch once. That's not a romantic idea of what tool watches are. That's what they were designed to be. The fact that they look extraordinary, wearing a jacket, doesn't change the engineering decision that made them work in the first place. Shin builds for people who need equipment that works. Christopher Ward proved something different, that the most expensive part of a luxury watch has nothing to do with the watch itself. Before we move on to the next part, let me tell you this. Most people don't realize this, but buying a watch the wrong way can cost you thousands, and you won't even notice it until it's too late. You walk into a store or browse online, and everything looks the same, but behind the scenes, there's a system. Prices aren't always fair, availability is controlled, and one bad decision can leave you overpaying for something that doesn't even hold its value. That's why I created a complete free insider guide to buying watches. Inside, you'll find the best watches to buy, the watches to avoid, and how to choose a watch that actually fits your style and budget long term. The goal is simple. I'll help you stop guessing and start buying smart. You'll find the free guide in the pinned comment and description. Now, let's move on to the next part. 3. Christopher Ward. Founded in Maidenhead in 2004 by Mike France, Peter Ellis, and Chris Ward. Not watchmakers. Entrepreneurs who looked at the Swiss distribution model and identified it precisely for what it is. A premium charged for the building, the watch is sold inside. They went direct to consumer before that phrase had any meaning in horology. No retail partners, no authorized dealer markup, no boutique on Bond Street. The savings went into the product. And in 2014, they justified the brand in a way no pricing argument ever could. They merged with Swiss movement manufacturer Synergies Horlogers and spent 4 years developing the caliber SH21. As confirmed by Christopher Ward's own documentation and Worn and Wounds reporting, it was the first commercially viable mechanical movement designed by a British watch brand in more than 50 years. Lead engineer Johannes Janka oversaw the project. The SH21's architecture, 2 mainspring barrels arranged in series. That configuration delivers 120 hours of power reserve, 5 full days, without compromising the balance wheel size or accuracy. Every SH21 movement is COSC certified, placing it in the top 6% of all Swiss-made watches for timekeeping precision. A C63 Sealander carrying this movement launched at $1,925. It has a 5-day power reserve, COSC certification, in-house British-designed caliber, shipped directly to your door. A Breitling with comparable COSC certification and similar power reserve costs 4 to 6 times that. The difference isn't the movement, It's the distribution chain the movement traveled through to reach you. What Christopher Ward proved is something that should make every collector uncomfortable about their other purchases. The boutique model isn't protecting quality, it's protecting margin. You've been paying for the marble floors, the sales associate's commission, and the authorized dealer's cut, none of which touch the watch. The light catcher case language, Christopher Ward's proprietary case architecture of flowing, chamfered surfaces and precise transitions between brushed and polished steel, is the brand's other quiet accomplishment. Walk a C60 Trident Pro into a room of experienced collectors. Nobody asks what it costs. They ask what it is. That's the goal, and it's been achieved. But here's the thing nobody in this conversation usually says out loud. Christopher Ward's real threat to the industry isn't the price. It's the proof of concept. If a brand this young can produce a COSC-certified in-house movement and sell it for under $2,000, then every brand charging 5 to 10 times more for a similar specification needs to explain exactly where your money is going. Most of them can't, and most buyers haven't asked. Christopher Ward proved that the boutique is theater. H. Moser proved something harder, that the most serious form of luxury is spending $27,000 and saying absolutely nothing about it to H. Moser and C. There is a watch in H. Moser's permanent collection with no logo on the dial. Nothing. The hands are polished steel, with one exception, a subtle purple seconds hand. That's it. The dial itself is Vantablack, a material built from vertically aligned carbon nanotubes that absorbs 99.965% of all visible light. It doesn't reflect. It doesn't shimmer. It simply ends, like a hole cut into the surface of the watch. The Endeavor Center Seconds Vantablack, launched at CHF 25,000, powered by the in-house HMC 200, automatic, 72-hour power reserve, and a double hairspring produced by Moser's sister company, Precision Engineering AG. The double hairspring corrects the shift in the center of gravity as each spring expands, reducing isochronism errors that single spring movements cannot fully address. That engineering belongs in complications costing far more. Moser includes it in a watch whose dial physically disappears. But Vantablack isn't actually the most interesting thing about H. Moser. The Fumé dials are. Fumé means smoked in French. Moser's Fumé process creates a color gradient, deeper at the edge, lighter at the center, through a technique that cannot produce two identical results. Every Fumé dial is unrepeatable, not in the limited edition marketing sense. In the physical sense, the process doesn't allow duplication, and Moser still doesn't put a logo on many of them. Think about what that decision cost them commercially. Every watchmaker knows that brand recognition is the primary driver of resale confidence. No logo means slower secondary market recognition. Slower secondary market recognition means buyers take a risk. Moser decided the buyers worth having would take that risk, and proved correct. The collectors who went looking specifically found them. Everyone else walked past. The Pioneer line starts around $12,000 on the secondary market. The Endeavor climbs from there. Watch charts. May 2026 data shows the Endeavor Vantablack trading near $27,000 pre-owned, broadly in line with retail. At this price bracket, most watches depreciate sharply on the secondary market. Moser holds. The buyers know exactly what they're purchasing. For collectors who've spent enough time in this industry to understand what internal movement finishing costs to produce, what hand-polished anglage on a bridge actually represents, what a proprietary double hairspring means in the context of accuracy and isochronism, these are not expensive watches. They're fairly priced manufacturing at a level where most brands long since stopped caring and started producing marketing campaigns instead. People who wear Moser at events don't get asked about the watch. That's the entire point. Moser makes watches for people who have nothing to prove. Number one is for people who understand why a man whose work sells at auction for $350,000 decided to release an accessible line, and what it means that it sold out in minutes without a single sponsored post. 1 Kurono Tokyo. In November 2025, a Philips auction in Zurich sold a handmade watch by Hajime Asaoka for $283,862, That was more than 3 times the pre-sale estimate. 1 month earlier, a different Asaoka tourbillon had sold for $348,000. The month before that, at a Philips sale in the United States, $361,950. Hajime Asaoka is not a brand. He's a watchmaker. Specifically, one of the most technically accomplished independent watchmakers alive today. His handmade atelier pieces have multi-year wait lists and prices that require a conversation with a wealth manager before the conversation about the watch. In 2017, he started Kurono Tokyo as what he described as his accessible studio line, a way to bring his design sensibility within reach, without the hand fabrication timeline his commissioned work demands. Kurono watches use outsourced movements, Miyota Automatics. In the 2025 Jubilee Sensu EOL, a limited anniversary release celebrating Asaoka's 60th birthday, he sourced discontinued Miyota 9,133 calibers, personally modified each one at his Tokyo workshop to remove the date display and simplify the dial architecture, and called the result the Cal .9133 PWT. The movements aren't engineering landmarks, but the dial of the Jubilee Sensu, an ice blue metallic surface stamped with a chrysanthemum wave guilloche pattern unique to that release, kanji hour markers, polished steel dome indices, a folding fan power reserve indicator reflects every decision made by the person whose tourbillons are selling at Philips for $350,000. Asaoka personally set up the display at the Kurono Aoyama boutique for that launch. He photographed the backdrop himself. He printed it and installed it himself. The watch retailed at $2,230. It sold out in minutes. The Kurono Divers, announced March 2026, distributed by Global Ballot with priority to applicants holding actual diving certifications, takes the exercise further. A crownless design. A 35mm cushion watch sits inside a 46mm diving shell, eliminating the crown as a potential pressure failure point entirely. The dual structure allows the inner watch to be removed and worn separately as a dress piece. The price is $2,700. No watch in this video costs more than that much. And Kurono occupies a position none of the others in this video do. It's the only brand here where the creative authority behind every design decision belongs to someone whose other work, made by hand in the same Tokyo workshop, regularly sells at the world's most significant watch auctions for figures that would buy a small house in most cities. There's a collector somewhere who bought the Jubilee Sensu for $2,230 and wore it to a dinner table where someone else paid 20 times that for a watch, with half the design intention. The Sensu collector didn't say anything about it. Neither did anyone else. That's not accessible luxury. That's access to a mind the watch industry doesn't have many of. And the fact that it arrives at your wrist for $2,000 instead of $300,000 is something worth sitting with the next time you're comparing it to a boutique sports watch from a brand whose movement you have never looked up. Every brand on this list made the same choice at some point, that the product was the argument. No celebrity wearing it courtside. No boutique designed to feel like a private members club. No waitlist that exists to manufacture desire rather than manage genuine production constraints. No campaign built around what the watch says about you. The watch industry has become expert at selling the feeling of the transaction. These brands sell you the watch instead. The brands that survive the next 20 years will be the ones that spent money building things, not the ones that spent money convincing you their things were worth money. The collectors who end up with the right pieces will be the ones who learned to tell the difference before the rest of the market caught up. That window is still open. Not for long. That brings us to the end of this video. Like it and subscribe.